When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
"This is ludicrous."
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, what's up, y'all? You are now tuned in to the Paging Dr. Shonda show. Listen, I am here with my good friend Eric, all the way from Maryland. You're not from Maryland, are you?
Detroit.
All the way from Detroit. My bad, y'all. All the way from Detroit. Eric, tell the people about yourself.
Don't get me in trouble. Don't get me in trouble. What's up, y'all? My name is Eric J. Thomas. I'm a native of Detroit, residing in the DMV area.
Hey.
I'm glad to be here with my good friend, Dr. Shonda. So my specialties are mental health, education, business, and religion. So that's me. That's it.
All about Eric.
Oh, please. Please. I'm on your show. I'm on your show.
I didn't know you were from Detroit, though.
Yeah, I'm from
Okay.
Detroit. What up, though? 313.
Okay.
BMF, the boys cash out. Eastside Cheddar Boy. Come on now. Don't do me like that.
So what brought you to the DMV?
I came here actually to when I decided to go to Howard and get my master's.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your master's was in what?
Social work.
Got you.
Social work.
Got
Yeah,
you.
that's that.
Okay, so being a black man and a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
what made you choose Howard to go there?
Well, number one, because it's the real HU. So, I got to put that out there. But no, I chose Howard, honestly, because of how highly ranked the social work program is.
Okay.
When I knew that I felt like it was part of my life's purpose to be a therapist and go into mental health, I looked at the various fields of mental health or the various pathways, let me say that. And I thought that social work was just the more well-rounded one that I wanted to more so specialize in. And in the event that I did not want to do individual, direct, one-on-one, I could always do some sort of programming systems, things of that nature in order to make sure people still have the services that they need.
Okay. So when you got into the program, did you know automatically that this is the field that you wanted to be in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. When we started classes and we started talking about the nitty gritty and getting down to it, I said, "Yep, this is it." Everything. My minor for my bachelor's was in psychology, so I always had an interest in the human mind and then whatever helps people and things of that nature. And so once we started day one and we're talking about programming and we're talking about racial disparities and all these things that affect people's mental health, I said, "Yeah, this is it." All my wheels were consistently turning. So,
but there aren't a lot of black men as
No, they're
therapists.
not.
Yeah.
No, they're not. I mean, because as a black man, you have the struggle to find financial freedom, to go into fields that are usually considered more lucrative or more respected,
Okay.
or even in that whole hyper masculine ideology. Therapy is a field most people will feel is a vulnerable one, more that's one regulated by women. Because it causes a person to look inward and get into connection with their emotions and their feelings and so many other things. And so that's typically usually frowned upon for men to go into, for the longest, being an educator was a woman's profession according to societal standards.
Right.
Men did hard work, hard labor.
Yeah.
But we see the needs for black men in the classroom. And me having been a black man who's been in the classroom, who's been an assistant principal of a school, who's done that type of work, it was really when I encountered my children and their parents, and I saw the fact that they did not have access to those mental health resources and they didn't even value mental health, although they very clearly needed it.
Yeah.
That's actually what kind of drove me to mental health and out of education.
Wow. Okay. So you started in education and
I
then you
started in
matriculated to
education.
therapy.
Mental
Okay.
health, yep.
Okay. So what would you say, and you kind of alluded to this already, what would you say are some of the barriers to black men becoming therapists, social workers, psychologists, like all these things?
I think that there is the whole conversation that every career you choose as a man has to be centered around money, how much you're going to make, whether or not you're going to be able to be a provider, things of that nature. But I would like to think that therapy or mental health is a lucrative field. It's just not one that many people know about.
Yeah.
It's not one that many people consider. We're looking at IT, being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and then pretty much it kind of stops there. So what's one barrier? The lack of education, the lack of information, knowing this pathway exists for men, for black men especially. People tell me all the time, "Yo, you're a unicorn."
You are.
And I appreciate that, but I really did not know how scarce the field was until I got into the field and until I was looking for a therapist and said, "Yo, why can't I find a black man?"
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because of those barriers, right? Yeah.
So for a lot of Black men, our mental health or our therapist office is the barbershop.
Okay. Okay. So talk a little bit more about that. Actually, we're going to go to a quick break. And I want us to talk more about how the barbershop is therapy for therapeutic for Black men, and then how we can create safe spaces for Black men to actually seek therapy.
Gotcha.
And we are back with the Paging Dr. Shonda Show. I am here with Eric, who is a dynamic therapist and a unicorn, right? That's what we say.
That's where we're going with. I got you.
You were talking about how the barbershop is so therapeutic for a lot of Black men. Can you talk more about that?
You know, I think the barbershop for a long time in our communities existed as a safe space because it was everybody Black. You know, you're getting your hair, you're getting groomed. And we know that Black men, when you get a haircut, you feel completely different than however you felt before going in the chair. It's almost like life's cares go away because you're not well groomed and you just know you look good.
Right.
It's a confidence booster.
Yeah.
What usually
and
takes,
same for Black women.
Yeah. And what usually takes place in the barbershop? Number one, you're absent opposite sex. So you have this freedom to just feel like, okay, I can just be a man without all those barriers or those walls and things that exist.
Yeah.
And so the barbershop historically became that safe space because you're in there, you're grooming, you're having conversations with your boys, whether you actually know these people or don't. Y'all are engaging in cultural conversations, hard-hitting topics, and you're not necessarily worried about judgment. But while the barbershop has typically been a safe space for Black men, number one, that safe space has kind of been going away. And number two, it's not a safe space for all Black men who exist in an intersection.
Okay.
So we have to acknowledge that as well.
Okay.
Barbershop typically used as a space, a safe space for heterosexual Black men who either have families, children and not married, things of that nature.
Okay.
But not really being safe space for Black men who identify as queer, anybody who might identify as a trans person, people who might exist on the margins.
Right.
You know. So it's not always a safe space, but historically, typically a foundational safe space for our community.
Okay. And so when those safe spaces are curated in the barbershop, like if I were to walk into a barbershop, what would I see? What would I hear? Like what's happening?
If you as a woman walked into a barbershop, number one, most likely everybody's going to get quiet.
Okay.
Don't get quiet, because the conversation typically might be sacred or it might be about women.
Sacred.
And and I think people value barbershop conversations as sacred.
Okay.
In a sense, because again, everybody's talking with no filter. So one of those conversations is about women or families, that there's a certain level of vulnerability that men share with other men that they don't necessarily always share with women. Unfortunate, but just a hard truth. And so if you were to walk into a barbershop, everybody might get quiet or the conversation just might change to be a little bit more palatable to you or a little bit more respectable for you as a woman, things of that nature. But if you are absent the space, it might get a little nitty gritty, might be flat out disrespectful, to be very honest with you, a little bit offensive. So.
Okay, so I love how you're bringing up how like barbershops are sacred spaces for Black men. And I want us to kind of transition into talking about therapy for Black men because one of the things that you really focus on as a therapist is how to get Black men into therapy and how to make them feel safe. Yeah. How do well, first of all, what makes Black men feel unsafe in therapy?
Well, I think the first thing that makes them feel unsafe is the level of the miseducation that exists around therapy in general. And so the miseducation that you are a man, you don't need therapy, you need to just man up. These hyper masculine and these toxic masculine ideas of what it means to be a man. So at the foundation is the challenge of our very existence, our very being as a male species, the societal standards that exist that define who we are every single day and every moment of our existence. So I think that's number one. That's one barrier. I think number two, it's who you want to get that therapy from. When you finally have an understanding or an idea that says, yo, I might need to seek out therapy. Well, who exactly do I want to share that with? Well, first of all, I would like to share with somebody who I feels like can identify with me. Now therapy is expensive out of pocket. Depending on how often I'm trying to go or how often I might need to go in order for me to become better or just become the person that I have the potential to be. I think number two is the fact that the insurance game as a therapist is extremely challenging and difficult, which is why a lot of therapists, especially therapists of colors, opt to not accept insurance. And, we know that, in practice, just how difficult it can be to sign up and partner. And then it's, do I accept your insurance? And if I accept insurance, do I accept all insurances? Am I strictly employee-based benefits? Am I accepting Medicare, Medicaid, that type of thing? So there's a lot of systemic barriers that exist that prevent men, women, people of color, or just vulnerable populations in general from receiving therapeutic services.
In what way does hypermasculinity, how does that impact Black men from actually seeking therapy?
The fact that when the idea is that when you go to therapy, you're not necessarily a real man, because why do you need to talk to somebody about your feelings and your emotions? Why is that even a conversation?
When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
This is ludicrous.
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
We're not talking about typical things such as, getting as many women as we can, who we might have went out or slept with the night before, maybe what our kids are doing if we have children, while we're not talking about hustling, getting money. Stereotypical ideas, conversations that men have, basketball, football, anything sports related. Right. So why do I need to open up to somebody about my emotions, the way that I'm feeling, what childhood trauma I might have went through? You know what I'm saying? Because the idea is, again, to be tough. Yeah. Be built a certain way, be wired a certain way. So why do you even need to go seek that? Why do you feel the need to talk about your feelings? We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to hear that. It's a very scary thing to confront for a lot of men.
Very. Yeah. How do men get to the point where they can overcome that fear?
That's a loaded question, because number one, you got to stop caring what other people think or what they're going to say. Okay. Your healing of journey is that of your own, and nobody needs to have the power to dictate that. And if you know that you are not well, or even if you are well and you just want to be better, you're like, hey, I want to get some tools and some resources and some equipping that's going to help me be a better father, a better friend, a better brother, a better son, a better man in society, whatever the case may be. You got to be afraid of what other people are going to think or say. It's not their journey, it's yours. And so when you take ownership of your journey of wellness, that's what I'm going to say, it's your journey of wellness, then it doesn't matter what people are going to say. People are always going to have something to say, whether it's about what you wear, how you look. We know that all the time. And so if you could just get out of focusing on what people are going to think and what they're going to say and take ownership of your journey, you will actually take that first step.
Do you think that society at large plays a role in reinforcing this concept of hypermasculinity in Black men, causing them to stay away from therapy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We see that in a political sense. We see that we see it over and over and over and over again. These constant propaganda, I'm going to call it propaganda, that's put out about men or ideologies concerning men, things of that nature. How do I best answer that question? Just imagine what you see on the news. Okay. Imagine what you see prevalent in popular culture, the shows that are put out on TV, whether they be from major networks or other smaller networks that are popping up, and shows that are placed on streaming services such as Tubi or Netflix and those. What images are represented of Black men? So if there's no representation of a diversity of Black men or Black women or people in general, then you are constantly going to think that you are a person on an island by yourself. Where that island exists in your mind, you're always going to be afraid to step off of that island. But there are other people that exist like you that are trying to be the best that they can, that are trying to become a therapist, become a better father, become a better person, get rid of their trauma. Those people exist all throughout the world. Yeah. We need to see more representation of that in order to fight those common narratives. And
when we do see that representation, I think it's important for us not to demonize it or to, further add to the stigma. I'm just thinking about, like, on social media, we see a meme of Tyrese crying. We see a meme of Will Smith crying. Who else?
We see a bunch of people, and now we have this thing, right? I'm gonna call it sassy man culture,
Okay.
where the moment a man is showing now vulnerability or standing up for himself against toxic ideology, people are calling him sassy. Men are calling him sassy. Women are calling him sassy. And it's really being turned into a derogatory term.
Okay.
You know, if I'm a man and I go out with a group of women or whatever, or let's say a girl and her friends, and they all expect me to pay for all of them, and because I don't want to, now I'm being called sassy. What?
Wow.
Like that, or a common ideology I had when I was growing up was, you know, men don't argue with women. But women are saying disrespectful, detrimental things. They're being purposely offensive.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm trying to argue with you. But if I try to stand up for myself, why are you arguing with a woman? You must be very sassy. What do you mean by that? What really do you mean by that?
Yeah.
What are you really trying to say? So it's almost as if men are handicapped, right, into this box. And while everybody's saying that they want freedom and liberty and they want men to get out of these toxic and these hyper masculine concepts, we constantly are creating things over and over again that continuously box them into those spaces.
Wow. Wow. And as a society, we're literally reinforcing that.
Absolutely.
Like, we are literally the ones who's retweeting it. We're the ones who's like spreading that information of like sassiness or what have you. Like, that's so good. The wheels are spinning right now. I'm wondering though, Eric, like, can you tell us more about how, as a culture, we can allow these safe spaces to exist for Black men, especially in the therapeutic setting?
Well, I think we can begin to uplift each other.
Okay.
We can't see each other with this, what they say are crabs in a barrel mentality. You know, it's understanding that, you know, I'm here for you just as much as you are here for me. We are all Black. We are men, we are women, and we need one another. We need to be able to build our communities and our families and our friendships and our relationships. And we don't have to give into toxic ideologies that come from the world or popular culture. Is knowing that I'm going to be here for Dr. Shonda just as much as I believe Dr. Shonda is going to be here for me. And she can find safe space and be vulnerable around me the same way that I can with her, and that not come back as a sense of retaliation the moment we might have a disagreement or we get upset with each other. It is knowing that in the event that I do feel the need to just say, yo, I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling sad, or I feel like crying right now. I have somebody who says, yo, you could do that around me, and I'm not judging you or looking at you strange for that. You don't have to bottle up your emotions or the things that are wrong. You literally can talk. And even if I may not necessarily know what to say, at best, I can listen.
Yeah.
And just be here for that emotional support you need.
Yeah.
And hopefully guide you in the right direction so that you can, get the help that you need. If we could just get or approach things with more of a healing mentality,
Okay.
rather than a hurtful or harmful mentality, an attacking mentality, then I think we'll make a lot of strides.
Yeah. Well, let me just start by saying, white supremacy has done a number on us, because we know these are products of white supremacy, colonization, seeing the hyper masculinity of Black men, and also saying that they're being sassy or feminine when they express emotion. Like, that is all a product of white supremacy. But as Black women, what are the things that we should be saying when we see our dads, our fathers, our boyfriend, whoever, men in our lives expressing emotion?
I think we live in a content-based and a content-driven society.
Okay.
I think one of the greatest movements I've seen on TikTok in the past couple of weeks was this woman who started a trend. She said, hey, Black women, if you are in a healthy relationship with a Black man, would you please stitch this video and tell us about it? It is her literally allowing space to reframe the narrative about the relationship Black men and Black women have with each other. And now you have all of these Black women coming together and say, hey, I'm in a wonderful relationship with a Black man. He is this, he's this, he's this. And they're not talking frivolously about what he buys for them or just where trips he might take them on. But they're literally talking about emotional connections. They're talking about mental connections. They're talking about the mutual uplifting that happens between each other.
Yeah.
So if we can really change the narrative, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to knock anybody's television program or anything like that, but we're looking at some of these programs that are becoming popular.
Like what?
Baddies.
Okay.
Baddies East and all these other programs, Bad Boys of Houston, those other shows that are not really showing Black people in the best light. We know that we are far above and far better than that. So how can we, and I'm not saying we need to play the respectability politics game,
right,
but I am saying, what can we push? What content can we develop that really will reframe the narrative of our community as a whole? We know that when Black people first started getting movie representation, we see this whole maids and slaves and servants representation to this whole pimp. Then Black people became pimps and prostitutes when they were finally in movies and things of that nature, or something just related to some Black struggle. Or we see Black single mothers who have a whole bunch of kids on welfare systems in movies. And so now movie representation has evolved to the point where we're finally seeing Black superheroes. That's why Black Panther was a very big deal.
Right.
We're finally seeing Black people being represented as lawyers and doctors and so many other places in media today. We have to reframe the narrative. And one of the greatest ways I believe we could do that is through the content that we push. This is the reason why your podcast is so necessary. This is the reason why content pushed out through pages like yours, like mine, like some other people we know is important. We need more content that uplifts and speaks to the positive side of what exists between Black people.
I think that those are all amazing points, and I can't wait to hop into more information. I'm getting a sign we got to go to a commercial. But when we come back, we're going to be talking more about making Black men feel safe in therapeutic settings. 2, 1. And you're back watching the Paging Dr. Shonda show. Y'all, when I tell y'all, Eric has been dropping so many gems. If you're just now tuning in, Eric is a therapist who specializes in working with Black men and people of like faith-based backgrounds. So, Eric, you were talking about making Black men feel safe in therapeutic settings. I want you to pick up on your thought process.
I want Black men to figure out, first of all, or acknowledge the fact that receiving therapy is okay. And then I really want them to understand that therapy is like trying on clothes. You may not get the right fit the first time.
That part.
But that does not mean that it's not worth it to try again. And so you might decide, hey, I've tried to get this type of therapist. Maybe I need to go with somebody who has a more expansive background. One of my specialties is cognitive behavioral therapy. You might want somebody who has a more extensive background or history with that. And so the point is you have to be diligent in your journey, and you have to realize like, hey, if this therapist necessarily doesn't seem to fit, me or what I'm trying to do or make me feel comfortable, it's okay for me to go to another one. It's okay for me to try another one again and again and again. And I know that can become exhausting, but how dedicated are you to your healing? Into your journey, your journey for wellness. And I think that as long as people know that it's okay if it's not necessarily right the first time or it's not perfect the first time, it's still worth trying again.
Can you expound on that? Because I hear so many people say, oh, therapy isn't for me, when in fact they only tried one therapist or one type of therapy. People don't know that there's a variety of things out there.
There's a variety of therapists. That's why you have so many pathways to becoming a therapist or a counselor, whether you have a degree in mental health counseling, marriage and family therapy, social work, professional counseling license, whether you have a master's or a doctorate in psychology or a Psych D, like Dr. Shonda, you know what I'm saying? There are so many backgrounds and so many ways to have access to the information. It's really about what you believe what you might need the best. If you believe you might necessarily need to see a psychiatrist who is a medical doctor that has a mental health component to it because they can prescribe medicine, that might be for you as well. Stay on the journey to seeking out therapy, seeking out services, and understand that everybody's not a good fit. Everybody's not a good fit, but the same way that you might go after them limited edition J's, and I know that because I love shoes, the same way you have to be diligent about seeking therapy and finding what you need. Just find out what fits for you.
Right. And in fact, when we're talking about like finding the right fit, a lot of people say, because I've had this bad experience with, like, let's say a black woman or a Black man or whatever, that means that specific type of therapist isn't right for me, right? And without giving other people a chance. And I keep driving that point because it's something that I hear so often. So Eric, I want us to kind of transition. I know you're really immersed in the culture of like faith-based community, the Black church, what that looks like regarding mental health. And I want to hear more of your thoughts regarding how you feel like we're doing regarding like addressing mental health in the Black church right now.
I feel like we need to do a much better job.
Okay.
I feel like we see churches that are trying to get on a mental health train and trying to encourage that, especially with the amount of pastors or people who profess to be believers who have taken their own lives.
Yeah.
All of the things that are happening, when we see things about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, how that affects the mental health of your communities and of your congregations. That's a necessary conversation to have. And everything can't be pray about it, shout about it, scream about it. At some point, we have to really get to full out plans of healing for people. We have to say, let's really map this thing out. And so I would love to see churches and faith-based communities partner more with mental health practices and practitioners. I would love to see people who would allow therapists to come into their space. I would love to see the intersection between people who might have a divinity degree as well as some sort of mental health degree or training. I would love to see that and really allow a lot of those people and those voices to speak. Do we see mental health resonate in the Bible? Do we see it present in Scripture? Bring those things out and drive those things out of the text when we're preaching. And I believe if we allow ourselves to have a more well-rounded or full circle approach to faith and to Scripture and everything else like that, we will allow for people to say, you know what, I might need to give this mental health thing a chance.
I really think that that's so important for us to highlight mental health in the Bible because a lot of people don't know that it's there.
Absolutely.
So you're definitely dropping gems. Eric, can you tell us where we can find you, more of your information? Like, what exactly does Eric have going on so we can continue to follow?
Listen, you can follow me on all social media at Eric J. Thomas. You can go to www.ericjthomas.org. And I'm always down to connect and partner with anybody. So that's just the way to stay in touch with me, and we'll just go from there. We're doing a lot of things for the future and for 2024. So I'm grateful that you would even have me on today. So
thank you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you and your time.
First fam love. That's all.
Period.
First fam love.
All right, y'all. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday to the Paging Dr. Shonda podcast.
When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
This is ludicrous.
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.